Up, a crypto talk show with our investors, partners, and remarkable personalities. I'm Konstantin Kogan, co-founder of GamesPad, and in today's episode, we will talk about utilities of NFTs and future of Web3. And our guest today is Jeffrey Kelly, co-host of Edge of NFTs, one of the most popular NFT podcasts in the US. Jeff is also a serial entrepreneur and seasoned investor and creator. Hi, Jeff. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to see you.
Thank you for joining us. And, traditionally, we'll just ask you to tell us a little bit about your background. How did you ended up in this rabbit hole, like first in crypto and then in NFTs? And then we'll go straight to the point, to the utilities of NFTs.
Sounds great. Yeah. So a little bit of background, like kind of the path that led me here. So my professional career started in the military. I was a combat armor officer in the Army, and dealing with kind of high stakes outcomes and missions, limited time, lots of ambiguity, limited resources, trying to get things done. And that's been the theme of my career, is constantly working in these places where the environment looks a lot like that. Now, I'm not getting shot at anymore, but the stakes are still high. We're really trying to do some big things and move the needle in the world. So I developed commercial real estate for a number of years out of Washington, D.C., following my time in the military, and had at that time looked for different entrepreneurial ventures to come into a space and have an impact, to be disruptive and try to elevate the space. And food was something that was very interesting to me and myself, as well as my business partner, Josh Krieger, and co-founder of the Edge of Company, as well as the Edge of NFT podcast and NFT LA. Founded a company with me called Territory Foods. And this had all the same kind of core components, the core values that we live and breathe by now, and that drew us to crypto. This was a national, decentralized meal production and delivery company with a sophisticated menu algorithm, a technology platform where we would co-create meals with chefs and put those creators first. Like, they would be on every single meal that we created, their names, their faces, pictures. And we loved that. And that was something that we built to a very large company, still exists now. We handed over operations to that team, and it's continuing to make waves in the space. So coming out of that is when we really discovered crypto. And that was like around 2017. And we saw these same elements, the decentralized world, the world of co-creation, this community-driven model that was forming. And we got so excited about it. And so we started working with a number of companies, advising them on core business functions, things like finance, marketing, accounting, operations, strategy, from our business experience that was not as common in the crypto space, where there were crypto native folks building companies that just hadn't done it before. And we started there, we haven't left. So it's been about 5 years in this space. And our interest in NFTs was sparked mostly by the original kind of CryptoKitties work that happened, meeting that team and understanding what the possibilities were, and basically anxiously waiting for somebody to make a move in the space that would inspire mass adoption. And NBA Top Shot was that for us. That was the trigger for us to start to build a platform to raise awareness, to educate, to inspire. And that's what Edge of NFT was. We launched that in March of 21. And then about a year later, launched NFT LA to do the same thing, create these magical moments for people to be inspired, to connect, to educate, to entertain. And that's what we've been doing ever since. We are laser focused on now.
Perfect. Yes. No, I have been following your journey, and it's like great. I mean, you produce a lot of great content, and I'm sure you speak to a lot of exceptional also entrepreneurs who are thinking a lot about the uniqueness of, how to wrap into NFT something more than just like that goes beyond just art. It's a lot of people perceive it just like a JPEG with like with NFTs, but it's much more than that. So I'm curious to hear your opinion. What is your vision of the different utilities, maybe most exceptional that you've noticed? You've mentioned and the Top Shots, one of them, obviously they're great, project, but maybe, and why do you think, maybe 2 or 3 examples, and why do you think they're important for Web3?
All right. So utility, the core utility to me of NFTs, broadly speaking, is what makes NFTs so interesting for the future. They're literally the building blocks of the metaverse and Web3, including gaming, right? So digital exchangeable assets. Blockchain and NFTs as this, version of blockchain right now, and it'll evolve. But that is what has enabled like the exchange of digital assets in a decentralized way. It's existed previously in games, right? You can buy skins and other things and exchange those within games, but making that universal in a metaverse sense, making it interoperable, that's the game changer, and it's all built on this foundation of NFTs. And so when we think about different forms of utility, I mean that's what the future is about. You have something now digital that you can use in any number of ways. Exchange is the easiest thing to understand, either purchasing something from somebody or an exchange of services in the form of an NFT. So that to me is why when I think about utility in NFTs, like why it's important for Web3. Now, what are some of the different use cases? I mean, there's tons, I mean, there's a bunch of boring ones, but that's what's going to inspire mass adoption. Things like, driver's licenses and deeds for homes, right? But there's also super fun ones like tie-ins to entertainment. We just had the folks from Fox Entertainment on the show, and they were talking about Crepopolis, a TV show that's going to be coming very soon from Dan Harmon, the guy that did Rick and Morty. And they won't even talk about the utilities yet because they're going to be so groundbreaking, for entertainment. But you can expect that it's going to be fun, it's going to be interesting, it's going to be captivating, and it's going to deliver real value to people that are watching the show. So think co-creation, being able to influence the outcome of the show, almost like a choose your own adventure, ownership. Also some clout in saying that you were there and had, the first NFT, or you owned one that another famous person owned. That's the provenance, side of utility. There are so many fun tie-ins there on that this is where core utility has its most value. The fun side, entertainment, and then the boring side, municipal kind of identification and things like that.
But yeah, so there are two things that you mentioned which are interesting. So if we take one use case and be Top Shots, which they piggyback on this, like nostalgia of like collectibles, right? And I like as kids, I'm sure everyone like somehow collected baseball cards, NBA cards, or I don't know, maybe Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, whatever you were playing, right? But that was like a physical rare like item that like you kind of, it was dear and near to your heart. It didn't not necessarily have like a concrete monetary value, but it was scarce, it was unique. Now we have a secondary market that we're not only that is scarce and unique, but you can also brag about it. Like you can actually list it somewhere and maybe someone will buy it easily without like the peer-to-peer transactions in some weird marketplaces, right? So that's another thing. Like I think it was exciting. And the second utility that you mentioned, the talk shows and the TV and entertainment, this is a native, something very native. Like if I would be able to buy the first Rick and Morty, like that would be, I mean, I would love that. Like I love the shows, or Simpsons or whatever. Like so yeah. Oh, but let's jump into something that people probably already know. I mean, that's like the most kind of popular example, Bored Ape Yacht Club, right? So the guys created something that was just pure, again, apes. Nobody understood what's the utility. It's kind of a club. Then they added events, spaces there, like in which only the selected people participated at, right? And then there is like entire metaverse and other like coin, etc. So a lot of things grew out of them. So maybe can you comment a little bit on this? Like, why do you think this particular example will bring us the future utilities, and how will it happen with certain projects?
So first, let me say to the first point, I think there's a place for, straight up collectibles, right? There've been collectibles, for as long as any of us have been alive, right? You have a passion for something you want to own, as you noted, like the first of something or an early series of something. And now with NFTs, it's collectibles on steroids, because definitively who the source was that created it. So for sure it's authentic, right? Who's owned it before you. And if that person has stated so publicly, you have a record of it, and everybody does immutably and, forever, right? And you have the ability, if you want to sell it in a way where it's much more liquid, because you have marketplaces that are public and massively adopted to trade these things. But still, even with no other utility, I think there's still real value there, man. Everything doesn't have to have core utility to have value. So I think there will be a place for collectibles. Now, the probability of a project being successful that's a collectible only project that starts from scratch and is trying to build a community from scratch, not bringing a community into it like Top Shot did, but actually starting. I think it's going to be low probability, right? Very, very few of those projects will really take hold. But the probability of becoming a successful project increases, I think, meaningfully when you add that utility component to it. And like in the case of Bored Apes, I think it's great in that they've made a promise that they're going to add utility, even without knowing exactly what that was going to be day one, at least publicly, right? And they've delivered on their promise, and that builds value, it builds confidence, and people know when Yuga Labs is working on something, there's probably something special there. We should keep an eye out for it. We're going to get utility if they say we're going to get utility, because they've done it, they've promised it, and they've delivered it. So, there's something to that, right? It's just your brand, your integrity as a brand, your community's trust in you as a brand. And I think that you can be a collectible, but unless you're bringing a community in, it's going to be hard to win as a straight collectible. And I think if you're a utility, you have to keep your promises over time to your community if you really want to be successful. Bored Apes is a great example of folks doing that so far, and it's very kind of young existence. If they continue to do that, not only do they have opportunities through Bored Apes, but also all the other projects that they're working on because people trust them.
I agree, and I think there's a lot of interesting things that they did, like that are kind of innovative, right? And but because just they simply delivered, right? And then I don't know if you've heard, but I'm sure Gary V. I'm sure you met him and you know him. So he announced that his hospitality company, one of his portfolio VCR group, they actually will be creating the first NFT restaurant. I'm actually super excited because it's going to be in New York. It's a Fly Fish Club, and like members only private dining club where the membership will be purchased with an NFT. So this is a very practical club. So the private club space is actually the perfect scenario of how it can be used. But I'm curious to hear maybe some other interesting examples that are very practical and they will be adopted massively in the coming year.
Yeah, for sure. So first, I love Fly Fish, love the idea. There've been, membership clubs, supper clubs, and things like that. But what a great use case for NFTs, right? Because it can evolve and change. You could trade it in fun and interesting ways. There's the royalty component. If it is that exclusive and continues to grow in that way, like there's such cool applications there. Now, let me go back to the boring shit. Okay. Really impactful stuff that will spark mass adoption. Okay. So things like I mentioned authentication, real estate, identity, medical records, intellectual property, credentials, ticketing, supply chain, voting, all of these things. Okay. These are the things that are truly extraordinary use cases, right? If we can actually make a switch to voting authentically on the blockchain, what an amazing advancement, right? We have a really hard time trying to figure that out. Now we require in-person voting or mail-in voting in most cases to try to validate, the source and authenticity, right? But wow, if we could do that, amazing changes. Now that's kind of like boring stuff though, right? So let me talk about the fun stuff and what I think is coming in the future. What gets me excited? So things like digital fashion, wearables, and how they intersect with virtual real estate and augmented reality, that gets me jazzed because the biggest thing missing right now from mass adoption of things like that and mass utility in our day-to-day life is less so the software side of it and the core apps in that space, and more so hardware. Like we're lacking the interface to seamlessly participate in the augmented world around us. It's already there in a bunch of ways. You can go into any number of virtual worlds and look around and see all these different things around you. But if we had a better interface, our phone is too clunky, our computers wouldn't work, a tablet doesn't work. We really need Apple glasses or something like that where we can just interface with that augmented world seamlessly. And at that point, to me, everything changes. It's a massive inflection point in human history. The moment we have a reliable, easy to use interface between our world and the augmented world, that gets me so excited.
Indeed, I think it's a huge market because it intersects also with e-commerce, and we will be able to drive the new avenues of purchasing and will trigger
Yes.
like deliver physical goods. I 100% agree with that. Huge.
Yeah.
But with this said, like, I'm sure like some of our when we prepare for this interview, like, some of our community members like ask a very simple question, right? Something like to start with basics. What, in your opinion, must an NFT project have to be part of the top 1%? Because we see there is a disproportional attention to like, let's say OpenSea as a platform and other like big platforms that have huge volumes, like secondary market, and others that are just up and coming, right? So in your opinion, what should change and what should be like, so that we'll have more and more projects on the top?
All right, so top 1% is near and dear to our heart because that's what we focus on for the Edge of NFT podcast, right? The top 1% of folks in this space. So how do we define that? There's several factors, and it can be one or many of them combined. So definitely traction with a real amount of value creation, like to start, right? Who has got that traction? Who has a formula where they can invest time, effort, relationships, knowledge, money into it and get more value out of it on the back end for their community? Now they'll capture some part of it. The community will get some, other stakeholders will, but who has that? Who's demonstrated traction? Even if it's a smaller company, right? That's just getting moving. If they're really showing true product market fit, we're looking for that. Number one. Number two, if you've already kind of crossed that threshold, you have a massive following, like a huge community supporting what you're doing. And maybe you haven't really started the massive value creation side of it, but you just have these people that believe in you and are supporting you and will be a resource for you to get there. That's a part of it. Certainly the sustainable vision of the leadership, like what is your stated, approach to the future? What are the resources you have on your team to get there? Looking for people that have a track record. Maybe they've been there, started a few successful companies, either Web 1, Web 2, Web 3 doesn't have to be, just in crypto, right? So we're looking for that leadership and experience and track record. And then lastly is really other support of people that are, validators that this is something they believe in, like industry veterans, partners, other investors, general supporters who have a track record of vouching for people that go on to accomplish amazing things. So any one of those or those things in combination, to us, point to a project that we would deem to be a top 1%er.
Got it. No, thank you. I think that's an interesting outlook. And obviously, like with this, like as in continuation, like, before we get to the questions from the audience, just curious, maybe you give some tips on how to choose the Goose NFT project. I don't know what tools are you using, maybe some automated tools also, like.
Yeah. So, okay. So I can't really comment like from an investment, perspective or a return perspective, right? There's lots of sophisticated tools, out there to help people and people that are, I think, well positioned to give that kind of feedback. I think for me, I think people should seek involvement with NFT projects and categories they genuinely care about, right? Like, and to become part, where they want to become part of those communities, active parts of those communities, to spend time with like-minded people that believe what they believe, that have similar passions and want to advance the ball for that community. Whatever that passion is, my recommendation to somebody, for example, just getting into the world of NFTs and exploring NFT projects is to follow your passion. Otherwise, it's not going to click for you. I could explain all day why NBA Top Shot's interesting, for me, and was interesting for me. And I was so excited when it finally launched back in, August 2020, whenever that beta originally came out. I was pumped about it and following it. I love the NBA. I love collectibles. It just fit for me personally. But someone doesn't care about the NBA or collectibles in general. They don't have an interest in that. They're just not going to get it. But if they care about, riding motorcycles or customizing motorcycles, and there's a community that's pumped about that, and somebody that has a podcast that's talking about it and throws events where this happens virtual and in real life and has merchandise and all these different forums where people can interact. And now there's an NFT that supports it, and this project where you can earn tokens by participating in the community and get these amazing, behind the scenes videos or participate in the creation of these things. Man, there's something there, and that will spark interest and passion in somebody that's passionate about that particular thing. So that's it for me. Follow your passions and go down the rabbit hole on NFT projects where you can participate around a community that believes what you believe.
100%. The community is the key. So, and with this said, basically, we're gonna thank you for these answers, and then
Sure.
now it's time for our audience to ask their questions. So I'm just gonna read you from different. We have YouTube question live from YouTube. We have from Twitter. So Block Jelly from YouTube is asking, which worldwide corporations and brands are playing big on NFT technology, and how do they implement NFTs into their strategies?
Yeah, so almost every big brand out there that you've heard of is thinking about NFTs in some form or fashion. A lot of entertainment companies are obvious ones that are at the forefront, of it, like, Warner Brothers and others. We had Warner Brothers out at NFT LA last year, for example, releasing the cowls of their NFT collection, the Batman collection that they did. And you should see, I mentioned Fox Entertainment before. So most certainly the entertainment companies are leading the way on that front as far as big brands are concerned. But we've seen Nike, right, do some matchups and get involved there. They're thinking, big apparel brands are thinking about that AR future that I just mentioned. I don't think there's a big brand that hasn't got a team thinking about NFTs and what's next. You'll find, though, big brands there's a bureaucracy there, and they tend to be very, very deliberate about what they do. So they tend to be a little slower moving on it. Maybe it works by being so careful on the back end. Maybe they missed the boat. I don't know, but time will tell.
Love it. So I'm gonna ask you now a provocative question, right? So sure. Capital Huddle from YouTube is asking, in your opinion, what is the best layer 1 blockchain for NFTs to use in terms of scalability, security, and decentralization?
Yeah, I mean, look, so it's hard to beat Ethereum, right? Like in terms of adoption, resources focused on continued development, historical, involvement in the evolution of the space. And so, I mean, listen, massive community and great, like freaking really, really cool people. Like if you ever participated in like a hackathon, one of the ETH hackathons or events, I mean, it's just a really genuinely supportive, open community. Dedicating tons of resources to people doing cool things in this space. It's really, really hard if you had to place one bet, to not bet on Ethereum leading the charge there to make it happen in the world of NFTs and that next evolution. Obviously, Solana and the other platforms. I mean, there's amazing, amazing people out there trying to drive things forward. But gosh, how do you beat Ethereum? It's hard to bet against them.
I would agree, probably at the time being, and plus we're going to see like triple halvening soon, so it's going to be huge and probably going to
absolutely
in Ethereum community and generally for NFTs, so it's going to be very positive. So from there we go into the next question, right? So Glitch Trap from YouTube is asking, it is sad that the mainstream knows about the NFTs and think about the monkeys, JPEGs, and ignores their true potential. How can we change the narrative to prove that NFTs are revolutionary and have the bright future?
What I would say is we don't have to prove it, man. It's going to happen. Like, it's not even a question. This is what I tell people. It's happening. The train has left the station, right? In fact, many people will be using NFTs before they even know they're using NFTs, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you don't have to know it. I mean, NBA Top Shot even is a great example. If you went on there when they launched, right? Never mind the developments that have happened since, but when they launched and you purchased it, you wouldn't know necessarily that you own an NFT. It wasn't like it said, oh, come buy an NFT. You put your credit card down, you open the account, you buy the thing with your credit card, and it's done. You own this like cool video and stats and all this other fun stuff. You didn't have to know that, right? The same thing is true of all the boring stuff that I mentioned when your deed is stored at the county as an NFT. You may not even know that. You don't even have to know that. Do you know the software that your website was built on, or a website that you visit was built on, what they used for it? No. Right. But if you were trying to build a website for your company, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, yeah, you would have had to know all those details because there's a lot of technical know-how that goes into building those things. The future is where it's just ubiquitous. It's just part of everything we do. That train has left the station. And so I think mass adoption is coming, whether people, want it to or not, it's going to be there. Of course, we want more people involved and to understand the technology behind it, but I don't think it's necessary.
I agree. There's a different question, which is interesting. I think so. Nakamoto-san from YouTube is asking, how far can NFTs go in terms of changing our everyday lives? For example, can we dream of a future with government IDs and driving license as NFTs on the blockchain? I think you mentioned it a little bit, so I'll let you another minute to maybe elaborate.
Just yes, 100%. Again, the train has left the station. I can't say it enough. It's coming. There's no stopping that. Now, is it 1155 contracts? Like, I don't know. It's going to probably be some evolution of that, right? We're just at the beginning. We'll continue to evolve contracts in the form that they take. But NFTs are the building blocks for the virtual and augmented world around us, aka the metaverse, right? And it's coming. It's coming. Just as every business kind of has a presence on a website, we don't think twice about that. But in 1997, right, if you had a website, like, you were cool and different. Like, that was very, very different, right? Like, that's it, right? It's, now you have to have one. It's like normal. Where's your website? It's weird if you don't, right? The same is going to be true about a presence in the metaverse, like, period. Like, that's happening. There's only, I think Yatsu was talking about, like, maybe 2 million people doing anything in the metaverse right now out of 7 billion in the world, right? So it's still super early. All those things are coming, and it's just a question of time, not if.
Yeah, I agree. So the different analysis from 2 to 5 million, right, which is still like drop in the water, right?
It's nothing.
Like in the ocean, it's nothing. So okay, so we're moving to another question, which is, I'm gonna skip the part where they're asking about how did you get to meet the NFT world, because it's already was answered. But Raphael is asking also the second part is, what aspect of the emergent technology persuaded you into believing that NFTs are the future?
I think it's the understanding that there is an augmented and or virtual world around us that gives us access to all the information available in your phone or on the internet, which is basically all information in the world is accessible to us with the touch of a button, which is, again, we take it for granted, guys, but this is crazy. It's crazy that that's the case, right? Again, 25 years ago, it was impossible to get information so quickly. And we have a clunky interface to do it right now, even though it's so far advanced from where we were then, right? And so my belief is rooted in the idea that access to information in all forms is going to advance us as human beings, as a species, connection, innovation. And by creating a direct interface like Apple glasses or something similar, where we can get into that augmented world, that virtual world, that metaverse in a seamless way, by doing that, everything changes. And so my belief is rooted in that access to information and capability, connection, information that will drive us forward.
100%. So Ecor24 from YouTube is asking, so you might have an advice for NFT creators. So if you could build an NFT product, what would that be? And why do you think that this product would be helpful to humans as a global community?
Yeah, I mean, wow. There's a million possible alternatives in terms of, building out NFT projects. I would say maybe some of the attributes that I would look for, the things that get me excited as a human, are things like earning income from taking actions that are beneficial to others. Right, trying to wrap this core mechanism into a project, to me, is really, really special. And there's a bunch of early projects that have started to do that and try to do that, but they're so early, people can find ways to manipulate them and take advantage and things like that. I think Axie Infinity is an interesting use case, as an example, where there's a lot of opportunity to create value. There's also a lot of opportunity to manipulate the system, and so you got to find a happy medium there. To me, it's that, though. It's where is there an opportunity to create a company, a project where people can get compensated for their engagement, for their awareness, for their community contributions, make a living off of that, right, and add value to the community more than they take. Like, these are the attributes that we're really excited about at our company, and we're working on some things we can't announce yet at our company that we think are very much aligned with those ethos.
Yep. No, I really support this. Like, we looked at a lot of interesting different use cases. So probably last question I will ask you. Okay. So from LinkedIn is coming. So I imagine I can own my home keys as an NFT on the blockchain. Would that be possible even? How can NFTs be helpful in our everyday lives? I think what they mean, like the Nest, like, when you open up a door with an application, this contactless, keys that are already popular. So would that be possible to embed it into NFTs?
100%. I mean, they're programmable, right? These contracts are completely programmable. So you could make them anything you can imagine. Basically, you can build into them and utilize them for. In fact, one rubric to use is just to imagine anything that exists in the physical world right now that's enabled by technology, and that can absolutely be built in the world and on the back of NFTs.
100%. So listen, with this said, we want to keep it short and sweet. So what will be your closing words about the NFTs and everyone who's watching it? Maybe they're trying to start a project, or maybe they just want to explore and buy their first NFTs. What would be your advice?
I would say follow your passions. Number one, again, I go right back to that. It's going to keep you interested and involved through the highs and lows. Starting any project is difficult, but if you're interested in it at a core level and from an authentic place, it will help you through the difficult times. Number one. Number two, just be persistent and patient. It takes time to build things. There are down markets, there are up markets. Stay with it. If you really are passionate about it and you believe in what you're doing, stick with it, see it through to completion. You'll get feedback. If it doesn't work, fine, it doesn't work, no problem. Move on to the next thing. But see it through to that point. That's the biggest thing to me. It's happening. And the last thing is, again, the train's left the station. It's happening. This world is forming. We're so early. We're all early. We're later than some, but earlier than most. So I think you're in the right place. If you have that passion, if you have that willingness to stick it through, man, good things are going to come.
100%. And we urge you to actually follow the great achievements of Jeff and his team and Edge of NFT's amazing podcast. So if you listen, you're going to definitely educate yourself and feel better about your understanding of the NFT ecosystem. Thank you, Jeff. It was amazing. Always great to learn from you. And thanks everyone for joining GamesHUB today and listen to us every 2 weeks now. So 3 p.m. UTC and YouTube Live, LinkedIn Live, all the other Twitter, Facebook. And thank you so much for being here, Jeff. We want to hear more of your stories, of your expertise, and hopefully we're going to work together on something.
Oh, we definitely will. And yeah, check us out. We're at Edge of NFT everywhere on all socials. And also for your listeners, if they'd like, 2023.nftla.live. If you want to participate in what we do in real life, you can experience that next year, March 20th to the 23rd, 2023. And that's the whitelist, by the way, 2023.nftla.live. It'll sell out pretty quickly. So for your listeners, check it out.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jeffrey.
Appreciate it, y'all.
Take care.